What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Behind Show. Today is September 8th, 2021. The NFL season starts tomorrow against the Dallas Cowboys, going up against the defending champs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just have a couple more of these, record predictions for each NFL team, kind of, finishing up the series before the season starts. This video is of the San Francisco 49ers, and the 49ers, they traded up in the draft in the top three to select North Dakota State quarterback Trey Lance. Lots of people were surprised they traded up. That was something I thought could possibly happen for months. It just really made so much sense. And the main thing with the 49ers this season is you don't know when, Trey Lance is going to take over as a starter for San Francisco. They currently have Jimmy Garoppolo as their starter, who's decent. He's not great. He's not horrible. He's slightly above average. So let's go ahead and get started with these predictions here. Week 1 at the Detroit Lions, they're definitely going to win this one here. And you look at the 49ers, last season they were in playoff contention the majority of the year, despite it seemed like half their starters on offense and defense were on the IR. Players like Garoppolo, Bosa, so many other players as well. It is kind of interesting playing against the Lions week 1 because they have a new quarterback in Jared Goff. They have a new head coach in Campbell. But I still think the 49ers will cruise past Detroit here easily and start off 0-1. Week 2, they play at the Eagles. This is an easy win. The Eagles, to me, probably have the second worst roster in the NFL. I think they're going to be really bad this year. I don't even think it's a guarantee that Jalen Hurts will be the starter by the end of the year. Their offensive line was horrendous last year, giving up 65 sacks. I think 49ers defense might take a slight step back, with them losing their defense coordinator, Robert Saleh, to New York. He's become the next head coach of the Jets. But I feel like the 49ers defense this game won't be surprised if they get a ton of sacks, pressure Hurts a lot, and win this one easily. They have a really, first two easy weeks. Those are some of the worst teams in the league. They get some easy wins on the road. Week 3, this is a rematch against, the NFC Championship game a couple years ago against the Green Bay Packers. This just seems like the one team that the Packers are just unable to beat. It's like a mental block for them. Green Bay can never beat San Francisco the past couple of years. And I still don't think they're going to beat them this year. You look at the Packers. I mean, they really did not improve their roster like people thought they did in the offseason. They lost Corey Linsley, an all-pro center. They bring in Amari Rodgers. They bring in Randall Cobb, some more weapons for Rodgers. But that's nothing great to, possibly outperform San Francisco. San Francisco, however, just have a ton of weapons, really nice just young receivers in Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. I think both of those receivers are going to have breakout years. And their offensive line's good. Their defense is fantastic. I think the 49ers will end up winning here to improve to 3-0. Week 4, they host the Seattle Seahawks. And something about the Seahawks, they are in the 49ers division. And this division is no joke. It is extremely tough. The NFC West, in my opinion, right now is the hardest division in the NFL. All 4 of these teams are playoff contenders. In my opinion, I would say the Cardinals are the worst team in the division. But I still think the Cardinals are even a team that can be around 500. The Cardinals were in any other division, I think they would be in the playoffs. But just because the depth that this division has, it makes it so tough. With Seattle here in week 4, Seattle is so inconsistent. They've been so inconsistent the past several years, especially last year. The first 8 weeks, Russell Wilson looked like the best quarterback in the league. The defense was atrocious. The second half of the season, Russell Wilson looked atrocious, and their defense was phenomenal. They can never, ever put it together. And I feel like this being at home kind of has a big impact on if San Francisco will win or not. I have them winning here to improve to 4-0. Week 5 at the Arizona Cardinals, I have them winning here. The Cardinals, to me, are one of those teams who can be good, but you don't know if they will be because they're just so inconsistent. The Cardinals are capable of beating the 49ers, but the Cardinals are also capable of losing to a crappy team like the Lions or somebody like that. I trust the 49ers coaching staff and their defense way more opposed to Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals offense because their offensive line is still a little bit shaky. With this one here, San Francisco improves to 5-0. Week 6 is their bye week, and they're 5-0 heading into the bye week. You cannot get better than that. And now here's this really interesting part. If you start off 5-0, if you're San Francisco, I don't know if you can have Trey Lance play at that point. I mean, you obviously have the best record in the league because you can't get better than 5-0. So to me, this is a very interesting situation. I think that possibly could occur heading into the bye week in Week 6. Week 7, they do get their first loss of the year, a home game against the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have a tremendous offensive line with Quentin Nelson, the best offensive lineman in the league. Darius Leonard's one of the best linebackers in the league. They have a great defense. They have a nice running back in Jonathan Taylor. I think Michael Pittman Jr. is going to have a phenomenal year at wide receiver. Carson Wentz, in my opinion, is really going to surprise some people this year. I think the Colts are honestly a dark horse to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. That's how much I like Indianapolis this season. And I just feel like the Colts they might not have better players at certain positions opposed to San Francisco, but I feel like the Colts will step up and play great because really look last year. Last year the Colts were good, but Philip Rivers is going to make a case last year. That was his worst year ever as a starter, and he still took the Colts to the playoffs. Imagine what Indianapolis can do with Wentz, who was familiar with the offense, who was the MVP candidate in their offense back in Philadelphia with Frank Wright. I think this Colts team has a lot of potential. Don't be surprised here if the Colts end up beating the 49ers here in Week 7. Week 8 at Chicago, this could possibly be, Justin Fields against Trey Lance. Who knows? Kind of really determines what both these teams' records are heading into Week 8. This should be a easy game here for the San Francisco 49ers. The Bears have a nice defense, but that's really it. They have Allen Robinson, who's a good receiver, but their offensive line's okay. Their running backs, nothing to really, brag a ton about. Things will be an easy game here. They improved to 6-1. Week 9, home game against the Arizona Cardinals. Like I mentioned earlier, the Cardinals are the worst team in the division, but they're capable of beating any team in their division and actually have them beating San Francisco here in Week 9. Like I was saying, the Cardinals are very inconsistent. They can beat the 49ers, but their next meeting they could lose by 20 points. It just really makes no sense. Their defense is inconsistent. Their offensive line, it's still not as good as people think it is. They brought in some nice acquisitions in the offseason like A.J. Green, J.J. Watt. Those guys aren't the 2015, 2016 J.J. Watt and A.J. Green, but they're still nice pieces to the team to add some more depth. I feel like the Cardinals are capable of upsetting the 49ers here in Week 9. San Francisco drops to 6-2 on the season. Week 10, a home game against the LA Rams. I have them losing this game here. The Rams, to me, are the clear favorites in the NFC West. I think they're the biggest threat to win the Super Bowl aside from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Rams, if they were one of the better teams in the league with Jared Goff, who's not even a top 20 quarterback, imagine what they're going to do with Matthew Stafford, who's a top 10 quarterback in the league, one of the most underrated quarterbacks really in NFL history, in my opinion. I think this might be closer than people think, especially with this being, in San Francisco. But I do have them losing here in Week 10. The Rams defense would be too much. With Aaron Donald, and Jalen Ramsey, I think it'll cause the 49ers some trouble as they drop to 6-3 with this loss. Week 11 at Jacksonville. Like I'm saying, earlier, Justin Fields and Trey Lance, possibly, rookie quarterbacks. This could maybe Trey Lance against Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. I had the 49ers winning this one here. Jacksonville has some nice, young, talented players. I don't think Jacksonville is going to get many wins this year, but I do think they're going to be a more competitive team than people think. But I do think San Francisco wins this one pretty easily here. They improve to 7-3. Week 12, they lose a home game to the Minnesota Vikings, and I am really, really high on the Vikings this season. Kirk Cousins was extremely underrated. Dalvin Cook was one of the best running backs in the league last year. Statistically, Justin Jefferson was the best rookie receiver we've ever seen. Adam Thielen had 14 receiving touchdowns. Irv Smith Jr., he's expected to miss the first couple of weeks, but I expect a great year from him. And their defense, they had a great offseason getting some nice linemen on offense and defense, linebackers and corners. I feel like Mike Zimmer's defense is really going to step up this year and give San Francisco's offense some trouble. They'll be able to get a away victory here against San Francisco. San Francisco drops to 7-4. Week 13 at Seattle. I have the 49ers winning here. The winning in Seattle, it's still hard to win in there, but it's not as hard as what it used to be. And, looking at this Russell Wilson team with the Seattle Seahawks, like I was saying earlier, at this point, you don't know what team you're going to get. I honestly think the Seahawks are a little bit overrated. They really didn't have any major acquisitions to improve their team in the offseason like they should have. Their offensive line isn't good. I expected the San Francisco defensive line to cause Wilson some troubles, maybe force a turnover or two. They get the win here, Week 13 against Seattle. Week 14, possibly Trey Lance against Joe Burrow. That would be a fun one to watch. Two young quarterbacks going to be the face of the league for quite some time. And I had the 49ers winning here. Like I was saying earlier, they were just so good last year, despite most of their players being on the IR. I mean, once all these players come back, they're going to be really, really good. Their defense is much better than Cincinnati's defense. Cincinnati's defense is average. The Bengals, they have some great players in offense like Burrow, Chase, Mixon, Boyd, and Higgins. The offensive line has showed some promise, but I still don't really trust the Bengals offensive line when it comes to nice defense like San Francisco. But like they might be in Burrow's face quite a bit here in Week 14. Leads to me having the 49ers get the win here to improve to 9-4. Week 15 against the Atlanta Falcons, I think they get an easy win here. Matt Ryan's kind of going towards the end of his career. They have Pitts, they have Ridley, but that's really about it. Their defense isn't good. I wouldn't be surprised if San Francisco wins by 10+ here. They get the easy one in Week 15. Week 16 at Tennessee. Tennessee is one of those teams, I have no idea what you're going to expect. This team is capable of beating a top 5 team, but they're capable of losing to a top 5 worst team in the league. I mean, they played against some top competition last year and was able to beat them in the regular season last year, but they also lost to the Bengals, who only won 4 games last year. It's really interesting with Tennessee. I have them, the San Francisco 49ers, losing here, but this being in Tennessee, and this is really a toss-up game in my opinion. The Titans lost a lot of players that people really aren't talking about. They did bring in Julio. Everybody loves that move, but they lost Corey Davis. They lost Adam Humphries. They lost Jonnu Smith. They lost some other people as well, like Adoree Jackson. So I don't know what to expect from this Titans team. They're going to be inconsistent, but with being in Tennessee, I'm going to give them an edge here to defeat the 49ers. But this really is a toss-up game in my opinion. Week 17, easy win against the Houston Texans. The Texans, the worst team in the league. I think they honestly might go 0-17. Wouldn't be shocked at all. Easy win. Proved at 11-5. Week 15 at the LA Rams. I know this might be, kind of bold having them beat the Rams, but I think it's a real possibility the Rams have the first seed in the NFC, and they might be resting their starters, so they don't want to take a chance of, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, some of those guys to get injured before the playoffs start. So with them resting their starters, I think it's a realistic chance that the 49ers beat the Rams and finish the season, 12-5. That's really, really, really good considering there's more than likely Trey Lance and Garoppolo will split the season. Especially, one of those guys is a rookie quarterback. That's absolutely phenomenal in San Francisco. I think they're going to be really good this year, despite playing in a great division like the NFC West. I think they're more than capable of getting, 10+ wins, 11 wins, or something along the lines of that. My ceiling for San Francisco is 13-4. Looking at their schedule, I think there might be 1, maybe 2 games they can maybe, squeeze a victory out. And my floor for them is 9-8. Like I said, this NFC West division is extremely tough, so I could maybe see them losing an upset game against Seattle or something like that. And some of these other games as well, like Cincinnati, like Green Bay, maybe one of those games as well. But I really think San Francisco is going to be really, really good this year. It might surprise some people. But my prediction for them is 12-5. That about does it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would really, really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you all next time on the Sports 200 Show.